Thank you, Jeremy. I'll be updating walleye status, as Jeremy said, for Lake Ontario. I need my clicker. Reminder that we do have fish community objectives for Lake Ontario, including for walleye. And our objective with walleye is to maintain a healthy, diverse fishery, sustaining local populations. I'm going to show you some of the indicators that we use to monitor walleye. But the bottom line, having updated or looked at this in detail recently, is that walleye in Lake Ontario are doing very well. The largest walleye stock in the Bay of Quinte in eastern Lake Ontario, that population did decline during the 1990s, but it has, as we'll see, stabilized at a level that still supports a high-quality fishery. I'm going to talk about two things. As I mentioned, the largest walleye stock resides in the Bay of Quinte and eastern basin of Lake Ontario. I'm going to review our fisheries and fisheries independent index netting surveys for that area, the same data sets that Jana was using to look at the smallmouth bass and the yellow perch. And I'll be saying a little bit about our walleye restoration efforts in Hamilton Harbour in western Lake Ontario. Starting with the Bay of Quinte and eastern Lake Ontario walleye population, we've got, and specifically the fisheries that occur there, we've got we've got a recreational fishery that consists of both an ice angling component, obviously in the winter, and an open water component. Here is a graph on the trends in the ice angling fishery. It's quite variable from year to year, largely based on ice conditions. But we did see that big decline in the 1990s to a low level in the early 2000s. These are the trends in angler effort in the line with the blue dots, and in walleye catch and harvest in the bars. We don't do creel surveys every year, but you can see that for the last number of years there's been a fairly stable walleye fishery here at about 150,000 angling hours per year, with a walleye catch and harvest around catch of 15,000 walleye or so, harvest around 10,000. Moving to the open water component of the walleye recreational fishery, a little bit less variation from year to year in this larger fishery. We don't do creel surveys every year. The last complete survey was in 2012. We are planning, we will be going in 2015, this coming year, to conduct this survey again. But we pretty obviously have a stable fishery at about 200,000 angling hours of fishing effort, and a walleye catch of about 25,000-30,000 fish per year. Within this open water fishery, there's a popular late fall so-called trophy fishery for walleye, based on the large migratory walleye moving from Lake Ontario back into the Bay of Quinte to overwinter. It's a late fall fishery, and we find it best monitored with a volunteer diary program. We've got about 20 or so dedicated anglers, including charter boat operators, engaged in this diary program. So we're getting information on about 200 boat trips per year. We've been conducting this for the last 3 years, representing angling effort, about 5,000 hours among these diary participants. They're reporting their catch of walleye. Interestingly, the the harvest is about 50% of what they're catching, so release rate about 50%. Seen annual variation of about twofold in fishing success from about 2 fish per boat trip to nearly 4 fish per boat trip, depending on the year. These, as I mentioned, this is a trophy walleye fishery. Here is the size distribution reported by the anglers in this volunteer program. And as you walleye fishermen will know, anything up around 30 inches is truly a trophy walleye. Moving to the walleye commercial fishery. This is a highly regulated fishery with strict quotas, strict geographic and gear restrictions. The harvest is about 20 to 30,000 pounds per year. In 2014, 28,000 pounds harvested. This walleye harvest comes from, there's no walleye commercial fishery in the upper Bay of Quinte. So this harvest is coming from the very lowest reaches of the Bay of Quinte and in eastern Lake Ontario. Where walleye fits into the commercial fishery on Lake Ontario, walleye is the 5th most harvested in terms of weight fish species in the fishery. In terms of value, they're the 2nd most important species next to lake whitefish. To sum up kind of the annual harvest of walleye in these fisheries, I've just averaged the last 10 years annual harvest. So we've got a fishery with an annual harvest of about 46,000 fish, just over 100,000 pounds of walleye, and most of that harvest, about 80%, comes from the recreational fishery and about 20% from the commercial fishery. A lot of data brought to bear here in these 3 figures are long-term gill net assessments in the area. Bay of Quinte, in the case of Bay of Quinte, from 1958 to 2014. Surveys started later in the mid-1970s in eastern Lake Ontario, both in Ontario waters and the New York waters, and thanks to Jana for the New York walleye information. When we do our surveys in the summer, these gill net surveys in the summer, the walleye population is kind of divided between the young, immature, juvenile fish that are resident in the Bay of Quinte year-round and the older, larger fish that are out in eastern Lake Ontario for the summer months. So we're kind of looking at 2 different components of the overall population in these graphs, the younger fish and the older fish. Notwithstanding this blip up in 2013 in the Bay of Quinte and this funny blip down in 2013 in the eastern Lake Ontario, the trends over the last 10 or 15 years have been fairly stable. If you look at the age distribution of the walleye caught in 2014 in these gill netting surveys, here's the ages of the walleye in the Bay of Quinte, mostly aged 1 to 4. And then out in eastern Lake Ontario, most of the walleye are 5 years old and older. But a broad range of ages, obviously, in that walleye population, and pretty consistent production of year classes. Looking at year class strength, this is the recruitment specifically. This is our young of the year catches a walleye in our August bottom trawling surveys in the Bay of Quinte. And then following a very poor 2013 walleye young of the year class, we've had in 2014 the largest year classes we've seen since 1994. That's probably the best news I heard for 2014. One piece of information on walleye biological attributes. This is trends in body condition. Again, I've divided this between our smaller walleye caught in the Bay of Quinte gill nets and our larger walleye caught out in the Eastern Lake Ontario gill nets, looking at trends in body condition. No trend in the small walleye, but high body condition for a 4 or 5 year period leading up to 2014, very high body condition. Arguably an increasing trend through the whole time series, but particularly high values recently. And then a decline in body condition for 2014. The trend, these large walleye, of course, eat alewife. That's 99 to 100% of their diet out in Eastern Lake Ontario in the summer. And if you look at the size of, this is a quick and dirty thing, but if you look at the average mean weight of alewife and the walleye condition, there appears to be some sort of relationship there. So big fat alewife are producing big fat walleye. 2014, both of these indicators were lower. Other walleye populations. Jana mentioned that we do some trap netting across the Ontario waters of Lake Ontario in a variety of embayments, from Hamilton Harbour in the west to the Bay of Quinte in the east, and on down the St. Lawrence River, Thousand Islands, Lake St. Francis, and lots of embayments in between. We know the Bay of Quinte walleye population is in excellent shape, but there's some other small embayments with very good walleye populations along the north shore of Lake Ontario as well. I want to focus, here's a map of the locations. I want to focus on Hamilton Harbour for a couple of slides to tell you about our restoration efforts there. There's a general goal to restore Hamilton Harbour fish community. And our strategy with this was to stock some walleye to kind of jumpstart the natural fish community restoration process. We've got a very imbalanced fish community in terms of predator-prey relationships, especially. This walleye stocking is part of much larger efforts to improve water quality and habitat in Hamilton Harbour that are underway and ongoing. So we did stock modest numbers of walleye in the 1990s. These were adult walleye transferred from the Bay of Quinte, but more recently, and this is what I'm interested in today, more recently, 2012, we upped our efforts. We put in 100,000 summer fringuling walleye into Hamilton Harbour that year. And really, I mentioned we're going there with our trap net surveys. We're going there every second year. And we had seen a declining trend in the walleye to 2012 when we didn't capture any. But these fish that we did see were either exactly the individuals that we transferred there from the Bay of Quinte in the 1990s or their offspring. They genetically couldn't be distinguished. But there were very few. In 2014, we went back with our trap nets and we caught 59 walleye. 55 of them were from that 2012 stocking event, and that catch per trap net is close to the catch that we see in the Bay of Quinte and meeting that target that we set for ourselves in Hamilton Harbour. The proof is in the pudding there. This is obviously an early start, but this winter, 2015, we had quite a few anglers discovering these walleye and catching these walleye from the 2012 stocking as 3-year-old walleye now. Very good growth of these fish. So anglers, local folks are quite excited about this, and we are too, and I'll leave it at that.